Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hey everybody, it's David, Mike, and Greg with the Near Memo, episode 174. Today we're going to be talking about a cluster of issues that are closely connected. Our research in Europe around hotel search, the European Court of Justice decision upholding the fine in the Google shopping search case and its sort of broader implications. And then where do we go from here? What's going on with regulation and the legal actions against Google, and how does that impact the SERP, and where do we think it's all going, and what should happen? So, David, why don't you lead us off?
Sure. So we did our typical methodology in terms of user research. We recruited 300 users, 100 from each from Spain, France, and Germany, and we asked them to essentially, that you're having a long weekend with a friend, find a hotel in either Paris or Rome, and then just kind of turn them loose on google.com. And we monitored kind of what results showed, what results people engaged with, the attributes of those results that people engaged with. And for me anyway, this was definitely the results were as different as I could have possibly expected relative to the other categories in which we've done this kind of research. So the non-surprising things were that when it was visible, or when either element was visible, the Places Sites module, the new module that Google introduced in response to Europe's Digital Markets Act, which is essentially preferred placement and sort of different visual treatment for largely aggregator sites, although occasionally you'll see a publisher in there as well. The Places Sites module and Google's Hotel Finder were almost always in position 1 or position 2. So occasionally Google, essentially half the time, Google would show one or the other in position 1, and the other half of the time it would be in position 2. So they were relatively visible, although in this vertical, users I wouldn't say rarely, but more often than in other verticals, users didn't scroll past the ads. We saw just a tremendous percentage of clicks going to the top 4 ad slots. On mobile searches, it was actually greater than 50% of clicks went to ads. Those were traditional text ads, as well as in the hotel space, there's sort of a horizontal carousel of properties, which both individual hotel suppliers like Accor Hotels and BB Hotels and those sorts of sites can advertise, as well as aggregators like Expedia and Trivago and Booking. So big takeaway here is that users rarely scroll past the ads. Google did show their own hotel finder in the top position, essentially just as often as this new Places Sites module that they introduced in ostensibly to comply with the Digital Markets Act. But the difference in clicks was just totally astonishing, that the hotel finder gathered something like 30% of all clicks, and the new Places Sites module got less than 2% of all clicks. And so to us, this was a clear case of Google continuing to self-preference in a different vertical, as the EU, or as the European Commission defines it. Hotels are sort of a unique vertical versus other local search verticals. And the preference given to the Google's own property, the Hotel Finder, was still pretty substantial, and certainly it earned a huge percentage of clicks. The one thing I haven't discussed that was a totally shocking takeaway was which site actually got the majority or the plurality of clicks. And that was Booking.com, which we have not seen an aggregator in any of our other studies that we've done in various verticals. We've never seen a single aggregator, get the level of clicks that Booking.com got. And it was primarily through ads. So Booking.com is in a position of being a designated gatekeeper, also subject to the Digital Markets Act. And we saw a multi-billion-dollar company essentially outbidding its competition on another aggregator for visibility. And that was just a very surprising finding. We have not seen the level of ad engagement that we saw in hotels in other verticals, and we certainly have not seen the sort of dramatic preference among consumers for any aggregator, let alone a single aggregator, to the extent we saw with Booking.com.
And to the extent that even within the Hotel Finder, it's primarily an ad-driven world where everything above the fold of the hotel finder is ads. And in that, booking.com, either them or one of their own subsidiaries dominates the ad displays. So even there, they're dominating even when somebody is using that.
Yeah.
And what I
On
thought
an
was interesting
individual-
is when you click through a specific hotel through the hotel finder, through an ad to booking.com, they wouldn't even take you to that hotel's page on booking.com. They'd take it to almost, to that hotel being at top, but a whole list of other comparable or similar hotels. So they would get you multiple ways, right? They'd get you through the ads at the top, but then their organic position was also very high. If people did go to organic, they were often one or two in the organic position. So
and that was true of the behavior you talk about, Mike, where if you clicked an ad to book a single property, ostensibly a single property from a Google business profile onto booking.com or any other aggregator, they all tended to do the same thing where the user would land on a list of hotels where that hotel was at the top, but not the sort of destination page for that single property.
Yeah,
importantly, Mike, you noted that kind of behavior actually enables aggregators to monetize paid clicks in a way that an individual hotel property simply cannot. And so that's another question of, is this a fair and contestable search result for individual hotels, which we called suppliers, which is the term that we've heard folks in the EU using. Is this a fair and contestable search result for suppliers if they are unable to monetize at the same level that aggregators can, and there's a single aggregator gatekeeper that is absolutely dominating paid clicks? It seems like it's not an ideal situation for suppliers, and ultimately the fact that basically so many of these clicks are monetized has to be driving up hotel room prices for consumers, which is also not a great outcome.
So this is kind of the story of this study in a way. I mean, this is the thing that is the most impactful in the real world. I mean, there's kind of conventional SEO wisdom that your position determines click-through rates, right? So, if you're in position 1, you're going to get more clicks than position 2 and so on down the line. But with the Places Sites module, that's not been true. I mean, that's one of the primary findings, is that position alone does not drive clicks. And other studies that we've done, especially in Europe, appear to validate that. In the US, I think it's a little bit of a different matter. Is there anything that would change that? I mean, I don't want to talk too much about remedies yet because we'll talk about that. But is there anything you guys can imagine that would change that Places Sites click-through rate? It's kind of an unattractive thing. Yeah.
Removing the hotel finder. I think the hotel.
Well, you think the hotel finder is so powerful that it just sucks all the air out of the room.
Yeah, I mean, we saw an even more dramatic effect of the local pack in restaurants in Ireland, and another study which we'll publish next month with Cinda showed a similar finding where the hotel finder and or the local pack is just so visually dominant. It eats up the entire width of the screen, and basically on a mobile device, almost the entire height of the screen as well.
Right.
It's got these really, eye-catching icons, dotted across the map. You get the review stars from, the properties that you can actually see. So the photos are scrollable in many results for hotels. So it's just an incredibly rich, visually rich result that just takes users' eyeballs and fingers on mobile devices right to it. So I personally think that's real. I mean, that's the story here, is basically if the hotel finder is visible, it's drawing. In our study, it drew over 50% of the clicks when it was visible. So if people did make it past the ads, regardless of the position the hotel finder was in, it was getting most of the attention.
Well, and that's rational behavior by consumers, right? That's a rational thing for consumers to do because there's a lot of really good information there. And if they don't use that, then they've got recourse to ordinary links, which don't have as much information and is arguably less efficient. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say the other story was that there is a difference in behavior in Europe between Spain and France and Germany. And in Spain, booking.com is even more dominant. That's right. The number of they'd go to Google, they'd search on booking.com, or they would immediately click a booking.com organic result or ad or whatever. So in Spain, And Spain has responded to this with a declaration of antitrust penalties of $450 billion against Booking for abusing their
Million, I think.
70 million for abusing their monopoly position of 70 to 90% in Spain. But it was just fascinating to me that the behaviors were quite distinct, that the hotel finder wasn't as commonly used because Booking has such a mind share in Spain.
Well, so let's unpack that a little bit. So this is the this theme of brand and search and how brand impacts people's behavior and ranking is something that sort of we've written about a couple of times, talked about, and for people that are based in North America, Booking.com is just one of many aggregators, one of many choices, and it doesn't have the same kind of brand strength. I mean, would you guys attribute the at least one of the primary factors to just its enormous brand recognition and awareness in Europe that people know?
Yes, I absolutely. It is a factor in people's preference. I think it has to be, but also to Mike's point, I mean, Booking or its subsidiaries, Kayak and Agoda and Momondo, they're everywhere, right? They're in some cases 3 out of the 4 ads were a Booking property, right? And traditional text ads. And usually there were at least 3 Booking.com options on an individual Google business profile for a hotel. And so I think that it's a combination both of brand and sort of subsidiary brands and being able to outbid everyone
shelf
else.
Space.
It's just a combination. Exactly.
They're
paying. Go ahead, Mike.
Nav boost. I mean, the fact that so many people are doing brand searches are giving Booking, tremendous organic strength. So they dominate the results. So it's this sort of self-fulfilling thing where Google's creating another monopolist.
That's the trap here is that the brand, the preferences reinforce the preferencing, It's like, and I don't know who said it. I mean, a number of people have said this, but I don't remember the immediate sort of source that I'm thinking of. That there's a way in which maybe clicks on ads play into that in some regard, right? If you're searching and consistently clicking on ads, that may have some sort of role in that whole process.
Hold it. Isn't there a firewall between ads and organic?
That we thought there was. Well,
Chrome,
I mean, if
Chrome
they're
doesn't discriminate, though, Mike. Chrome doesn't discriminate. The Chrome usage data, I'm not sure flags that for Google search.
If they're tracking clicks, and Booking.com is getting a ton of organic clicks, it's getting a ton of ad clicks. That just seems to sort of to reinforce the whole,
or even just traffic in a Chrome browser. I mean, we know Google is tracking that as one of the factors. So if consumers are going straight to Booking, that's even another sort of feather in Booking's rankings cap. So
so
there's some irony in this self-fulfilling that Google, the monopoly, creates other monopolists.
It's helping to reinforce the position of other monopolists. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that was the description I gave, is that it's a symbiotic relationship, right? That I don't think. I mean, Google wants to keep getting the ad revenue from Booking, and Booking wants to continue to be able to outbid its competition so that it maintains its. I don't know that it wants to maintain its gatekeeper status, but to maintain its market share. And neither company wants to see any of these dynamics changed by regulation. It's pretty clear. So,
thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.